Christopher.
Okay, hi.
Hey, welcome to Cold Hard Ugly Truth TV. I have a question for you.
Okay.
If you have your son and you walked up and you see a woman slapping her son across his face and just beating and kicking on him, how would that make you feel?
Absolutely nauseated. It's wrong. It's wrong on several levels. Disrespectful, unkind, unprovoked. It's just a sense of I have great disdain for that, for someone that would do someone like that, particularly a man from a woman. There's many other avenues one could take to avoid that type of violence. My personal experience has been one of consistently being treated that way.
You?
Yes.
You have been
Consistently abused by a woman.
abused
Physically.
by a woman physically?
Physically. Yes, ma'am. And I
Wow.
think that in our culture, society, American society, I would say that, particularly the black community, I would say African American community, because I can speak from that because I'm African American. Particularly in our community, it's looked down and frowned upon for a man to strike a woman. And so much of it is leaning so much more to the right as far as giving them more grace to be able to continually perpetrate this crime against a man by the hitting and laying on the hands of one, is that we as men tend to allow it to happen and downplay it. It's okay, she was just upset. She lost her temper. She didn't mean it. As well as we're taught as children in our African American community that the male is bigger, stronger, faster. How dare you impose your physical prowess over a woman, a weaker vessel physically. Not that she's weaker mentally or intelligently or as a human being, but physically she doesn't have the attributes of a male, simple as that. She generally doesn't have the genetics for that. She's female. So we've been taught as children in our community that you don't fight your sister, you don't fight girls, you don't hit them. But no one's teaching us that when it gets to that level of volatile interaction where the female is actually the aggressor, where is the off switch for that? Where is the relief for the male to not put up with that, even though he may love her, as though it was in my case.
Right.
You have love for that person, you have respect for that person, and above that, you have self-respect for yourself.
Exactly.
You don't want to roll over as a man at night and look in the morning, I would say, when you rise and look in the mirror, and you look at yourself and say, "Dad or boy, you beat up a female." And not only that, you beat up the female that you love, whether it's your family member or your sister or your mother or your aunt or your girlfriend or your wife or fiance. You don't want to look in the mirror at yourself and see the cold, hard, ugly truth that you're an abuser, that you put your hands physically on that woman. Likewise, it's far more traumatic to allow a woman to beat you physically, draw blood from you.
Did that woman drew blood from you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Where?
My lip, my nose, scratches on my neck, constantly scratches on my neck. I would try to refrain her. I'd gotten to a point where I realized that here it comes again. And so I would brace myself and watch her hand movements, knowing that she's right-handed, she's going to strike with her right hand first, and I try to catch her hands in the air and prevent her and turn my head. And oftentimes, more than most, I turned my head just as she was scratching towards my eyes, and she'd catch me on the neck down to my chest.
Are you kidding me?
Yes, that happened repeatedly. And there's no one to talk to tell about this exterior pain.
I'm glad you're talking to me.
Yes, I have
I'm
had.
honored that you're talking to me about it.
I've had several a friend, a favorite employee. I won't mention his name. Grown man. He's actually older than me. I'm 51. He's in his mid-50s. he was repeatedly cut with a butcher knife until the point that he was stabbed repeatedly. Several cuts.
By his wife?
By his girlfriend.
His girlfriend.
His longtime living girlfriend.
And what did he do?
Much like all of us men do. Internalized it. Blamed ourselves. Thought it was something wrong with us. And oftentimes, more than not, when you would try to defend yourself as far as deflecting her licks or her strikes or blows to your head or your genitalia, your very vulnerable parts, it would get that bad at times. She would aim for, the groin area, which is horrible. And
did you stay with her?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
When did it take the turning point for you to walk away?
In my situation, and a few men that I know of who have dealt with this, it got to a point where, in my case, I got angry finally. And usually I got angry about it every time. But throughout that anger, the process was I had a cooling off period. After she burst that energy and that negative force out and displayed that type of behavior on my person, I had time to go off to myself, whether it be crying, beat up myself. I must have provoked it. Maybe I said something to her in the wrong manner. I believe, me being the victim, I began to blame myself for her actions.
Did you ask her why was she hitting on you?
Yes, I did.
What had to do with news?
When you say had to do with news, in what respect?
Did someone lie on you that you're seeing someone?
Oh, that would just be one of the whole host of the gamut of excuses that it would give her a pass to elevate to that level of anger and expression of anger and violence. Those were the things that, if I wrote a book, it would be a chapter on what I would call the explanation or the justification of that's why I treated you that way, Christopher. That's why you get one to the head. That's why you get another one to the head. And if you do this again, I'll give you another and another. And if you question this, I'll give you some more. And you better not try to fight back, because I got my hand on 911 and I've told everybody prematurely that you're a beater. And it took me going through that several times in that relationship before I began to realize it was a repetitive pattern with this person. This person is not making a mistake. This is a conscious, thought out process of attack.
Every time?
Every single time. It was already premeditated. I would find weaponry placed strategically around my house, such as a bookcase. There'd be a knife under it. The bed, it would be a knife under the bed. It would be a knife between the bed and the mattress.
Oh my God.
I would see some of her girlfriends would come over when I would first meet them. At first sight, I would always leave and go outside and work on my truck or do something to give those women their space together. And I would hear compliments. He's a very nice guy. He's a handsome guy. He runs a business. He seems to be godly, moral character. You really did a good job by getting this guy. And then she would sabotage it. He's not that. He's not this. I would overhear her say things of, he's selfish. We don't have food to eat. He beats me. He threatens my children. And when I would, from time to time, bring that up to her, of course, then that would be what I call a trigger. As you become abused, consistently abused, you begin to learn to cope with it. You pick up different coping mechanisms. Some people use drugs. Some people use cursing. Some people use friends and family as support system. I myself turn inward to myself, to God. And the more I turn inward to myself, to God, the more mercy I had for this person that was abusing me. So I would not use my fist to strike back. And I would, in a sense, condone her doing that type of behavior. She knew that I wouldn't hit her back. She knew that I wouldn't curse her back. She knew 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10 that I'm going to hit him in his face, I'm going to scratch him on his neck, he's going to try to grab my hands, and I'm going to fight and struggle more to beat on Christopher. And I began to get coping mechanisms such as I wouldn't drink or smoke or go cheat or anything like that, but I began to do self-destructive behavior. I began to turn inward within myself. When I say inward within myself, I mean along the lines of I'm already what you might call, some people might call antisociable. Not meaning that I don't have oratory skills to make my point of view clear, or that I'm afraid to be heard, or that I'm afraid to give my opinion. Those type of things I have courage for. I don't mean that. When I say turn inward, I begin to shun particularly other women in our immediate space. We could go to a restaurant, and I begin to train myself not to make eye contact with the opposite sex, which were females, because that was a good way of me getting cursed and hit constantly. Or I would refrain from, if I would see my children step out of line with something very simple, I never threaten them anyway. I don't believe in threatening children and abusing children. I do believe a swat on the tail to little Johnny or little Susie saying, no, baby, don't do that. Don't do that. Appropriate according to the age. You know, you don't hit a toddler 2.5 feet tall with this iPad repeatedly. You don't do that. You know, I believe in corporal punishment, but with reinforcement of love. When I say corporal punishment, I don't mean to come down so heavy on a child. This is a child. Like the scriptures say, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child.
Yes.
But we may need to even add that these children grow up and they become even more foolish and abusive.
And do the same thing.
And not only that, they become very manipulative. Like I say, she would set traps for me. She would constantly groom her friends and her support system that I was the enemy, that I was a person that was abusing her, that I was not taking care of her financially, emotionally, sexually. And she would lie and sabotage my character as a man and an individual because she didn't want her girlfriends to date me.
Oh, I see.
Therefore, you have the narcissistic personality that perpetrates that illusion.
Gotcha.
That everybody's against me and this man wants every woman and every woman wants him. This is a person that goes into what we call a psychosis, which is considered as psychopathic, because they're doing self-destructive behavior to themselves. They don't see the world as it truly is. You know, they see up as down. Example, I could get a raise on a job, put forth the effort, get recognized by my working peers that, attaboy Christopher, good job, did a fabulous job. She would steal my thunder, so to speak. She would sabotage it. Any and all that. Why is your supervisor giving you that? Does she like you? Does she want you?
Ooh.
And when you would try to answer, you would get hit or goaded into a verbal confrontation. Because me as a man, as an adult, occasionally we would have some distance between each other, and she'd catch me off guard, and she'd question me along those lines, and I'd turn around and say, no, what do you mean? I didn't do that. But in that tone right there, that would warrant me getting jumped on.
So, with all this being said, and all these things happens to you.
Yes.
At what time did you think or feel enough is enough for you to walk away?
Difficult to say specifically. In that abused mentality, I've developed a comfort zone, coping mechanisms. And in that comfort zone, I began to just stay right there and deal with it and put up with it. It would be similar to a prisoner of war, no disrespect to our veterans, that you come to a place where there's a wall or a gate around you, and you know that wall's there, and that wall is immovable. That wall is impassable. You can't go around it, you can't dig under it, you can't go over it. So you begin to close, those walls begin to close in on you, and you begin to accept that you're a prisoner. And so mentally, you begin to diffuse your hopes and your dreams. And you, again, I say, things begin to retreat inward.
I'm glad you're talking to me about this, Chris, because it hit here. There's tears coming from your eyes because of the hell that you've been through. And this is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. A man can suffer inside, like Christopher, the pain that he's gone through in life, and he still give this person chances upon chances upon chances. And I think maybe this is the first time he's really talking about it, really dig deep within himself talking about it. It hurts so bad. So for those people, for those women that like to beat men, just remember one thing. The men have feelings. Men are somebody too. Not because you're a man, that doesn't mean you can't be hurt.
No.
Because the man doesn't want to ease back with a right hand and punch you in the mouth.
Right.
Okay? So that man locked his arms down in order not to tear your ass up and being the gentleman that he is.
Yes.
And I'm so sorry that you went through this. I can see that it hurt real deep.
Yeah, over the years,
Oh, God.
it becomes, as you get out of that toxic relationship and you move on as an adult and you begin to recompense over the choices that you made, you begin to see parts and pieces of it. It's all fragmented in your mind. You know, it's a blur. That's part of the coping mechanism of dealing with such pain. It's a blur. Days begin to turn into weeks, weeks begin to turn into months, and little do you know it, a piece of your humanity is slowly taken away. Example, you don't talk the same no more. You don't smile the same no more. Your once exuberant zest for life and ambition and a heart for helping your fellow man and going into a restaurant and you're at the door first and you want to, since you're at the door first, you politely open the door and let that gentleman, man, woman, or female, or child, whatever culture, go through first. You'll become a little bit more coarse and abrasive. That's part of the coping mechanism too, because you'll tell yourself, if I be nice, the reward is violence.
You're going to get hit.
And so if I turn within with myself and don't share that love, then I can truly avoid interaction with a human being. And that's not good.
So, Chris, did you hit rock bottom to walk away from her?
Yes. Yes. My freedoms, my exclusion of that relationship came about through several times of having the police at my home, questioning me, taking me to jail.
To jail?
To jail. To jail. J-A-L.
So did she lie on you?
She lied repeatedly till she developed a pattern of it. And
did the officer finally realize that they were lying?
it took years. It took years. It took years in respect of, it was such an ironic case and it was so repetitive that the officers began to take mental notes and they began to remember me and they would remember my personality and they would remember her and they remember where I lived and my children. And they all would talk amongst one another. This is what I was told after years of going through this. And they all agreed that they knew it was nothing I was doing.
Chris, thank you so much for taking this time to talk to me, because I'm against it to have two boys.